I'm still dressed for Florida.
Oh,
I didn't realize it was gonna be snow in Utah too. I'm gonna just grab something for the fridge. I didn't know it was gonna be so cold today.
I look at the news every day. Weather.
Not good about that.
Hello.
Hello.
I want to do a little quick printout of myself. So this is how technologically I am inclined.
You want to get Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I did it in PowerPoint.
Okay, so I had added one. Yeah. Well, no, I could only have squares on them, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I
All I need.
If I had on this, I would share the screen.
And how do I know who's on?
It will be participants up here or move this over here so you can see everything. There you go.
So if there's a thing that says timing, what do I hit?
You should be good. I literally just turned it on, so
Okay.
yeah, you should be good. You shouldn't need to worry
And
about.
people, I don't have to let anyone in. They're
Nope,
just gonna-
it's.
Good morning, Ann.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good,
Your
how
hair's
are
super
you?
cute today.
Thank you. It took me forever. I straightened it.
Ah.
I was feeling motivated though.
The most straighten I do is with my blow dryer.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
otherwise I'm sitting here.
I don't even bother.
My gosh, I know it.
But you know, I find that the older I get, I used to straighten my hair all the
Yeah.
time. It actually makes me look older. So
Okay.
curls do
Yeah.
keep you youthful.
Your curls are beautiful. I wish I had curly hair. Right.
See, when I want my hair curly, it just goes.
Yeah.
Mine's like a in between. Like it
Mine's-
just kind of.
Mine's very, like, I have a lot of curl, but they're not little, it's more like wavy curls.
Well,
Which-
your hair is
Yeah.
thick. See, mine is so fine. There's nothing, like, I can get my hair in a ponytail like this big, seriously. It
Well,
looks
if
like
I
have a lot,
Didn't
it's
have
not.
my hair straightened from like blow drying, I would fight with it more than I
Mhm.
like whatever.
Hair.
I know, right?
You know, it's a blessing and a curse.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let me know if you need anything.
Thank you, Annie, appreciate it. I'll rinse this out quick.
I bet they love just having you to themselves, like if you didn't have other cousins. I bet they love that. I would want to teach it into my kids. Sorry.
Not yet. Okay. But I know, like, Jess said everything's gonna come. Yep, she's gonna be on.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Hey, it's totally cool. Couple more minutes. I know Irene is, she is Jessica's admin.
Okay.
And so Jessica Nearing just Cool. So Jessica Nearing is one of my clients for TC. She just added me on last week. And so we're navigating kind of the same thing that you would potentially be navigating, where who does what, you know, and yeah. So I hope it's gonna be good clarification, because it's so hard to know. Do you have a real estate background originally?
Not originally, I just got my license, so I am officially licensed now, but
Congrats.
yeah, I did not come from a real estate background at all, so.
It's a lot to take in.
Yes, definitely.
Like, I mean, even in an agent, and then, you know, when you're managing the team and stuff, it's like how my graph is like TC, legal, everything else is admin.
Exactly, everything else.
Trying to
basically.
simplify things. So we have one other person who's gonna be joining us in class. She said she's gonna be running a little late.
Okay.
I don't know if information I have is going to fill a whole hour.
Right, right. That's okay.
So. Good morning.
Good morning.
I love it. Lisa just signed on with me 2 weeks ago too. Her and Melissa. And so, yeah, good to see you.
Hopefully we'll be closing something. We have like about 4 people we're juggling right now, but.
And you know what happens is then all of a sudden at once, they all
Yeah,
contract at the same time.
and then you'll go, oh darn. All at once.
I'm just gonna give it another minute. I know that Irene, Jessica's admin, is gonna be joining us. And then we do have someone who's gonna be joining us in class, but we won't wait. She said she's gonna be late, don't worry. Too many email addresses. One for when I was with CMS Home Group, I have one for KW, I have one for TC.
Oh, I do too. And then the CRM program I use, Market Leader. Yeah, well, my website is Recon Real Estate, right? That's the domain, they host it. They're the ones that gave me my email address, which is lisa@reconrealestate.com. I mean, it's a different one. Then they told me not that long ago that they're gonna stop supporting it. And I'm like, you're the one, this is my website, you're the one that gave me this email address, why would you stop supporting it? And so now it was one of my main emails, and so I'm having to wean myself and everybody else off of it, so. I'm like, who does that?
What I started doing, what I started doing is I just forward everything from my KW email to my KWPRTC email, and that way I'm like, that way I'm sure never to miss a beat, but then stuff sometimes goes to my CMS Home Group one, and
Yeah.
We'll get started. Hi, I'm so glad you joined us. Does everybody know everybody?
No.
Well, let's just kind of like go around the room. We don't have anyone on Zoom yet, as far as I know. Irene will probably be joining us at some point, but if you just want to like kind of say who you are and what your role is in, because I think we've got really a good mixture of, you know, so let's start with you, Megan.
Yeah, I'm Megan Oren, have my license, it's 2 years in August, I'm an agent. So.
And Megan and I started working together really
Tammy.
recently too.
Yes.
Yep. So, so that, how has that been going, by the way?
So awesome. Tammy's
I
the
didn't
best.
prep her for this, I didn't know
No,
she was coming.
Tammy's the best, and I've been like telling other people they should use you too, so, yeah.
Yes, thank you. So, we'll go to you next, Lisa.
Lisa Rican, I'm a real estate agent, had my license for about 5 years. And then, I mean, I can do all the paperwork, but it's a real huge time sucker. And I see the value in working with you 10 times over. So I can just focus on sales.
Yeah.
or
Yeah, and you know,
prospecting.
and that's the thing too, it's like, well, this isn't TC, but it's easy actually for the most part. But it's like when you can take all that extra time and devote it towards something.
Well, and I didn't mean to like say it's easy.
No.
I meant that you're worth your weight in gold because it's a lot of work.
It's tedious.
Yeah.
I don't like
It
stuff
is.
like that. Like,
It is
yeah.
tedious, and I don't know why, but I just.
We're glad you love it, so you can do it for
You know,
us.
I always say that's a sign of a gift from God, so to speak,
Yeah.
because if you love somebody, that's one of your signs that God gave that to you as a gift. You know?
Yeah, that's good. Well, Melissa, we're just kind of going around the room. Everybody knows Melissa, right? So, and then Lisa and Melissa and I just recently, we talked and stuff, and we decided we're gonna give it a go with the TC. So I'm excited to work with you guys. And then Megan and I have already started a working relationship, and that's going really well. And then we'll go to Ann.
Yes, I'm Ann Haas. I work as the admin for Dwayne Moore's team. I started with him like about a year ago, and then I did just get my license.
Oh, congratulations.
Licensed admin now, yeah. And,
Congrats.
and then we've got the 2 team members, Candace and Mary. Yeah, so I do like transaction coordinating for them, and then also the admin work too. So
Yeah, and your team is just upping. I mean, like mad.
they're doing a
'cause-
great job.
Yeah, Dwayne has only been in real estate for a
Yeah,
couple
for a
of
couple
years.
years. Yeah,
yeah.
a little more than a couple, yeah, I think.
So, what is everybody hoping to get out of this class? I should have asked that, but anyone want to volunteer what you're hoping to get from today?
I would say as a kind of an entrepreneurial mind and spirit, I have all these kind of popcorn ideas that are in my head, but not necessarily a good framework for, dividing what is administrative and what's marketing, and then time blocking, how to do a little of each every week. And you can probably, really contribute to like, how do you divide your time between the two? What do you put more time into than that? I just like to leave here with a framework of how can we better spend our time.
That's good, because we will focus, we can talk more about that. That wasn't really something that I had in mind too, so yeah, good, cool. Anyone else want to share?
Well, just elaborating on that, that's part of the reason I wanted to even come, because I think it's so helpful to, to like get a better idea of like defining the different roles and stuff. And then I just feel like I'll be able to organize my time better the better I understand the different
Do
roles.
you use time blocking?
I try to.
Good
It's
for
a new
you.
concept for me, and
Me too.
definitely in the last year from working here. But yeah, I would like to try to do this.
So much
do
of
more
that
and
TC work
successfully.
is like reactive,
Yes,
like it happens
exactly.
right now and it's gonna be done right
Yes,
now,
it's like
and then you
it takes
put
precedence over
everything.
everything else,
Yeah.
right? If something just pops up, I'm like, okay, I need to just quick take care of that so I don't forget. And then I try to come back to the other stuff, but yeah. It's time blocking.
Yeah, that's such a good point though, because you're right, it is reactive. It's like, how can, it really, sometimes you just can't be proactive. So that I will segue into why it's so cool to have a TC, because that, when something comes up, you need an amendment or, we'll kind of go through a couple of the things and the roles and things like that. But when you need something done in that hurry, that's where you can leverage that off to someone else so that you can continue to be proactive and moving forward. So,
And Megan, you've been doing both all on your own, right?
Well, before Tammy, I did use Autumn, but before that, it was just me. I remember when Jess was still my coach, and I came home like really late from showings one night. It was probably like 9:30. I was texting with her. I'm like, I just had like a breakfast sandwich for dinner. I am so exhausted because I was working another job at that time too. And she's like, well, it's time to use Autumn. So literally the next day, I met with her, I think. I'm not back, and now Tammy is just so awesome. So I was excited when I found out Tammy was, it's already exciting.
And can I share our story a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so a little bit of the history is Autumn used to offer just uploading into Command. And I shouldn't say just, because we all know that it is tedious. That is like, a really time-consuming thing. And when you're thinking, gosh, I've got to upload it into Command, and then I've got to get it out to the title and the lender and this and that, and it's like easily things can be missed. And then when you're running all day. So when Megan and I first met, that was kind of what she utilized a lot of Autumn for. And I had to break the bad news to her that we were not going to proceed with just the Command side of things. And she's a lot like me. I need control over everything.
Like, I'm still trying to do things, and Tammy's like, I can do it for you. I was like, okay.
And I mean, and agents can still, I have agents who are needing a lot more than Megan, and so, I mean, it's kind of like our group that we found that it took a little convincing and a conversation, and just like, I'm not gonna, as a TC, and I'll get into that too, but as a TC, your clients aren't gonna remember me, and nor should they, right? Because they should remember that. They should remember the agent, they should remember the admin. I'll go over into that. Okay, so what I did was I just want to make it real simple. The purpose of this class really is to define what should the admin be doing, what should the TC be doing, and then how we play together. Because if you have an admin on your team, I'm probably going to work with your admin more than I am you. That's just kind of how it works. But when we look at the roles and we're like, well, gosh, what does the TC do? What does the admin do? And then, how do we all work this together? I kind of broke it out in simple terms. You've got your agent here, and you got your TC and your admin. Some people will say, what do I get first? My business is growing. What do I get first? Kind of a personal preference. I would always recommend, hey, get your TC first, because we're paid hourly. We're not paid hourly, we're paid per transaction. And if your business is still booming and you really need somebody to work on those other things, that's when you add an admin. But we know that there's admin out there that are doing TC, and that's fine too. And then at some point, when you get to a point where your admin, your team is growing so much, and then you're focusing all your time on transaction coordination, that's maybe a time when you think about, hey, do I add a TC in? So that's personal preference. What I like to say is a TC is going to just focus on your current business, maintaining what you have. Your admin should work on growing your business. And when I say growing your business, these are the things the admin should really be focusing on. Marketing, your customer service, I'll go over all of these in detail, events, and an assistant to the agent. In a real simplified term, your TC is just working on the legal part, really, when you think about it. TC doesn't have much interaction with the clients. They'll have some. I do a little bit more than other TCs. I've been a TC and I had no interaction at all with the clients before. That was just the agent, and we just kind of did the background. But every TC is a little different, and you can choose. If you say, hey, I really don't want you to do that, or hey, I want a little bit more hands-on, what can you do? So let's, what I just want to do is we'll just kind of go over what TC duties are. Let's do admin first. Let's do admin first, and let's break it down into marketing. So marketing would be, anyone? shout things out.
Social media,
Yep, social media.
36 touch,
Yep.
special events. Like new listing postcards, just sold postcards.
Maintaining their database.
There's database. Yep. I also have on here, yep, your email blasts, your newsletters, mailers, open house flyers. That's what your admin is gonna do. TC doesn't do any of that. TC is not good at those things. You don't need to do those things. But that's what you're gonna be doing with your marketing, for your admin. And again, those things all are to grow your business, right? To get the word out. When we look at, we'll kind of combine this into events. That kind of goes back to your 36 touch. Events maintain your business because you want to reach out to your current clients or your past clients because you want them to remember you. But it also grows your business because by keeping those relationships, that's gonna help them to remember you. When we think of customer service, this is where it gets a little tricky. If you're doing an admin, what do you think some of the customer service roles are for a admin? So this is probably, yeah, these are the obvious. Customer service. I am not good at this.
Like follow up throughout the whole process
Yeah.
of onboarding a customer and then getting to closing.
All the little things that come up in between, making sure they're
There's no
taken
little
care of.
things.
Right? Yeah, what little
Little
words.
things. So what would be an example of some of the little things?
You know, I find myself like fielding a lot of questions between the seller and the buyer during the transaction, you know, like,
Yeah.
do the buyers want this furniture? You know, all that kind of stuff, like, you know, utilities, setting up utilities for when they move in and, you know, I like, yeah, those are two big things that come to mind.
So that, totally, so that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Big difference between the TC and the admin is you're kind of the face of the agent. You're the warm fuzzy. You're the one who's gonna reach out to them and say, okay, this is what's gonna happen with the inspection.
Yeah.
We're gonna help you set it up, or you know, you're meeting with listing and the admin's gonna say, okay, so next step is we've gotta do staging. I'm gonna get you in contact with our stager or photography. Yep.
Yes, I have like little like templates that I use, all like just checking in, you know, next steps after inspection, after doing
Yes.
appraisal, and this is like what you can kind of, what to expect next.
And did you generate all that on your own?
Yes, yeah, over time, using Gmail
You're like,
templates.
I know that I'm doing this a lot.
Exactly, saying the same thing, and you know, of course, I always am going through it, I kind of tailor it to whatever is happening in this transaction, but there are some things that I'm saying over and over again, so yeah, I like definitely templates for all those next steps.
Do you have
That's
calendar
smart.
reminders in then to remember to do that, or do you just
And
go on
I'll do,
autopilot?
the checklists in Command, because we use Command, so there's like a, you know, as I'm moving things across the sales pipeline, I kind of tailored those checklists in there too, to kind of trigger to remind me to send out that email about next steps to the client, you know, as I'm moving it along.
Cool.
And if anybody wants, you're spot on. Anybody wants tips on how to do that in Command, I can show you
Nice.
how to set up the checklist. And you can even have that certain checklist items can go out to your client directly. So that it will show them anytime something's marked off, or so Command is I mean, I'm pretty impressed with Command for what it can do. It doesn't do what I need it to do for TC. I actually have a separate TC software program that is phenomenal. It kind of puts Command to shame, but when you're dealing with your clients, that part of it, you know, it's systems and processes and stuff like that. That's really good.
Probably Command.
So I'm here every Thursday from 1 to 2. So if you want me to show you, like, just show up. That's all you need to do is show up if you really want more input and insight into.
When you say
how
show
it
up to a
works.
class or just to you, like set an
It's-
appointment?
Nope, just show
It's
up.
like a drop-in.
It's a drop-in.
Oh, okay.
Every Thursday from 1 to 2. I am here to answer any questions about anything relating to TC. I can help with Command. I know enough to be dangerous. I won't proclaim to be an expert on Command, but I did teach a whole class on that whole thing, so yeah, bless you. So what I kept hearing Anne say is client, client, client. That's the big difference with TC. TC, agent. And we'll get back into that in a minute. But that, again, the warm and fuzzy, that's gonna be the face, and for Megan, and for you guys not having an admin, that would be you, is fielding those calls. So that's where leverage can come in too. There is a little bit of a blurred crossover with some of the TC duties I do that help with an admin on some of those things, and I'll go over those too. Okay. So as far as, let's see, so this was customer service. Other things that, you know, I have specifically that I know as a TC I don't do is, you're selling a condo, reaching out to your client and telling them, hey, we need to get you to order your HOA docs. Some agents would do that for them, but usually requires that upfront fee. So I know as an agent, I personally would I would be the one saying, hey, this is what you gotta do. So, septic and well, you have to coach your clients on that if the agent hasn't, or, you know, to get them the resources to contact a septic and well company to come in and do the tests and compliances. And then, as Anne said, helping them understand the whole overall process, just being their kind of their go-to, this is what's gonna happen next. As far as the assistant, what do you feel? This is the assistant to the agent. What does admin typically do as if you're thinking on the assistant? Not dealing directly with the client, assistant and helping with the overall daily functions. This would be making sure the photos are done for listing, staging appointments, how about making sure that the lockbox is dropped off, picked up afterwards?
I would guess printing projects.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back into like the marketing. But yeah, anything printing projects, closing gifts. These kind of more directly relate to the I can speak from experience with CMS Home Group that, and Karina's a great resource if anyone wants to talk to her too, as the admin. She takes care of all the closing gifts. They don't do necessarily a specific one to each client, but I know they have like a little lockbox that they have gift cards. And so with each closing, they'll look and say, okay, where are these buyers or sellers at? What do they think? And then they also do Cutco. So depends on really what you guys are doing. But closing gifts, sometimes they'll go out and hang or remove a sign. signs. Anything else? So yeah, just to kind of go back, marketing, again, that's gonna be promoting, that's anything doing with promoting the company, getting new business. Customer service, that's in, as far as the, that's anything doing with the client. Events, of course, to grow and maintain. An assistant is all those little things that when your agent says, hey, I need you to do this or that, they can help out with those. Let's get into the TC part. The TC really is the support of the agent or the admin. I put this in simple terms as legal. So when you think of it, hey, who does this and who does that? When it comes to that, what comes to mind that the TC would be doing throughout the transaction or listing?
Checking for accuracy.
Yep.
Dividing all the documents.
That's the thing.
Oh my gosh.
And then putting them where they need to go and command. And then do you send documents for signatures too, like amendments and purchase agreement and all that? And do you follow up then when one side has signed it and the other, you're just not getting a signature? You're the one that follows up saying, hey.
I like to call that one timelines.
Yeah.
Sending the docs to lender, title, whoever else needs them.
I like to call that the big three. So, put this down. So, back to accuracy, when, and again, I'm gonna just go from my own experience and what I do as a TC. There are TCs that are a little more limited, and then there are TC, like Anne, where she does the TC and the admin, so that works with this. So let's just talk executed purchase agreement. We won't talk listing at this point. So when an executed purchase agreement comes in, I'm looking through to make sure that we haven't missed any boxes that haven't been checked or dates or anything like that. How this is a benefit is instead of waiting until we get closer to closing and then we find out when it goes through Melissa for final review, we're finding this out earlier and ahead of time so we can be more proactive and make sure that we're getting back to this is where if we're missing anything, I reach out to the co-op agent and say, oh, you know what, we missed the final acceptance date. Do we agree on this is what the date should be? Can I just add this in or whatever the case may be? Also missing docs, which you kind of see when you upload to command. But it's a second set of eyes, somebody who can make sure that all these missing, that all the docs are there that are needed for the compliance part of it. Dividing, obviously that's pretty straightforward because we have to divide in order to put it into command. I heard, and I don't specifically Sandy's explain this, and that command will eventually have a feature that can divide a doc. So you can put the doc in. Used to be that you could do that through DocuSign, but they're working on it. I thought it was supposed to be released in October, so, but that is coming down the pipeline and that's super cool. So when I divide my docs, when I get an executed purchase agreement, what are you taking out? So you're gonna send the executed docs to your, hey, Irene, probably Abby. Hi, Abby. So when you're dividing your docs, you're gonna send executed purchase agreements to your clients, right? Because you wanna say, hey, we're all executed, here are your documents. You're gonna send them everything, of course. But when you send to the lender, are you sending them everything? Or is there anything you're leaving out?
I learned the hard way that we should leave out some amendments.
Like what?
But like for repair issues and stuff like that,
Yeah.
because we almost don't close because of that.
Yeah.
That's a hard lesson.
So, yeah, when you're doing an inspection, if you have repairs that you're asking for and a price reduction or something, or a closing date change or whatever, do it on separate amendments, right? Because you need to send any legal stuff over to, I shouldn't say it, they're all legal, but you need to send any kind of details that are gonna affect the whole overall transaction. Amendments where you're asking for GFCI outlets in the kitchen done by a professional contractor to provide receipts. If you say that, your lender's gonna get involved, and that affects the appraisal and that. So, about though at the beginning, personal property. Do you take that personal property out before you send it to title and lender? Should it?
I don't
So-
know.
Dividing the documents, take that out.
Oh, can I ask
Because
though?
if you have lawnmower on there, that's gonna be part of the appraisal process.
So in the case of a townhome, because everyone was telling me I did it wrong, but in the case of a, say, a townhome, and then they're dealing with insurance companies over repairs, a storm comes through, right? And after the fact, like after someone gives a purchase agreement, storm comes through, does some damage. So we create an amendment to make the owner deal with that damage before closing, right? Because the house has changed. And then I sent that to the lender, and then it had already been approved by underwriting, right? Would you still have to send that to a letter? Because everyone told me I didn't have to, like I shouldn't have. And because we almost didn't close because of it.
So I had a very similar situation over the summer where the day before closing, my buyer called me and she said, I heard there was a really big hailstorm in Lonsdale. What do you know? And I'm like, not what you want to find out at 9 p.m. the night before closing. There are certain situations like that that you do have to send because we couldn't close. That's probably like a really deep conversation to have,
Okay.
but from what I'm hearing, I don't think you did it wrong. When something like that either prevents closing or now things have to happen that are gonna delay closing, those types of, so in my situation, we had to have the assessor, the insurance assessor, whatever, go out. First of all, deed, is the house okay? And they're like, no, new siding, new roof.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we know we're not closing because even though we can say, yeah, the seller has to pay for, use their insurance to pay for the new roof and the new siding, it can't close with that. The title company said no way. So just, that was a situation, yeah. So they actually had to escrow funds in order to close and it had to go back through underwriting and it was very.
And I think ultimately what you did too was in the best interest of your client, even though
Yeah.
not closing on time wasn't necessarily the best interest of your client, but they got assurance that they deserved the work was going to be done by the seller. So I think you have to do it even though it's complicated.
So, well, and so you're saying it has to go to the lender, they have to be notified legally.
It depends on
That's
what
where
it
it
was, but.
No, that's a really good
Yeah.
question.
So if you
And they
haven't
don't
done
have
that-
to be notified
Yeah.
legally, I wouldn't say,
Yeah.
but ethically, they do.
So
And when it came down to it, were funds escrowed?
No, well, no, not for that last storm damage. You know, that there was like storm damage that happened weeks after everything, after underwriting hadn't approved everything. Then I had new amendments to deal with that. And then I sent it after the fact to the lender, and they're like, it goes back to underwriting.
Yeah.
And then they said, well, this work has to be performed. It couldn't be performed, maybe not happen for a year because they're in negotiations with insurance company.
Yeah.
So like.
So no funds were set aside for it.
Not for that, no. So we just, what everyone was mad at me about, I'm talking about with them, is that I should have just had this agreement, the amendment and agreement between me and them, not sent it to the lender, right?
And I would suggest that sending it to the lender would put more teeth into the seller to make sure that it happens. So I feel like you did the right thing. The mortgage company just didn't respond the way we all expected them to.
Yeah.
We thought they would make it more of a
Well, they
financial
had,
obligation to the seller.
they actually responded where they needed the work to be completed by a licensed contractor. And then the association said, no, we're not doing it. We're in a multi-million-dollar negotiations for other storms for the whole complex.
Right.
And we will not do fixing. And so what took so long was they had to go way up in the ladder in the banking system to try to get them to waive that requirement.
But I think you did the right thing, because had you not done that on behalf of your buyer, your buyer would have always wondered, gosh, did she just sweep this under the rug, or did she actually advocate for me?
Oh,
And you did, even though it complicated things, and even though you were told no.
okay. Well, and then he had a son that's a lawyer, so that could bite us in the butt.
I think, I totally agree with Melissa. Like, that situation, we're not talking the means of purchasing somebody's lawnmower or snowblower.
Okay.
In that situation, because what recourse do you have if it wasn't done? Or, and property value, and just, there's that, that's what I would agree.
Thanks for talking through it. It's nice to learn.
Yeah. So, but overall, when you divide out your documents, when I divide my documents, I send the buyer or the seller all of the execution. Then I take personal property out to title and lender, and I also, there was something else. Maybe that's just it. So, yeah. Uploading to command, of course, we all know what that is and how that's done. Sending out the docs. So, one thing that I do is, I can prepare your listing docs for you. I can prepare your buyer rep docs for you. And the only docs that I won't prepare is a purchase agreement. I would caution you, if you use an outside TC and they're preparing your purchase agreement, even if they're licensed, I guess in my mind, I'm the agent. And can I share another little quick story about you?
Yeah.
About a recent transaction? She had on her purchase agreement that seller concessions were $300. And she was right, but when I read it, I thought, 300? Are we sure this isn't 3,000? So if you're relaying this information to a TC to say, hey, I need you to put together this purchase agreement for me, and that TC leaves out a zero, you're the one who's got to explain that to your client, where they're only getting 300. I mean, that really doesn't relate to you, but it just brought to mind where I'm like, and I reached out to Megan, I'm like, are you sure this is right? I just want to be sure.
It was unusual, for sure.
Yeah, so anything unusual as a TC, that's what I'm looking at, and I'm like, I know we're already executed, but I just want to bring this up before it gets to the closing and you have to explain to the buyer why they're only getting 300 instead of 3,000. So, but back to writing purchase agreements, you're the licensed agent, or, you're the one who has to, it's your license who's on the line. So if you're gonna entrust somebody else to write your purchase agreement, and, you know, we're human, we make mistakes. But if you're not, ultimately, if somebody's writing your purchase agreement, you better be looking over it, every line, and make sure that that's how you want it written. Because you're the one who's gonna have to respond to your client on why now they're paying, go say taxes on something that's supposed to be prorated or whatever. Timelines, I have a system that when I put in all of the dates, the execution date, it's gonna remind me when to send you an email. So sorry, I'm just kind of thinking out loud and like, do I go back to the beginning or do I? So when I get an executed purchase agreement, I have a system that I use that I go in and I write what the acceptance date is. Is there a written statement? Is there inspection? If so, how many dates? And it calculates all this for me because I've set it up to do so. So I, as a TC, what your TC should be doing is really making sure that the agent stays on those timelines. It's not like we're telling them how to do things, it's like we're just sending out friendly reminders. So timelines. The first thing that we're doing is we're gonna have something in our timeline to, if there's trust funds involved, we're gonna wanna make sure that the trust funds were submitted, and we're gonna follow up about 7 business days later to find out if it was settled. Part of what I do as a TC is I ask that my agents add me to their team on trust funds. And then instead of me reaching out to Lisa, hey, did that settle? And she's got to look into her thing, it allows me to go right into the trust funds. I'm copied in on all the emails, and, you know, so that's the first thing. Inspection. I'm going to reach out to Megan and I'm going to say, hey, Megan, I just want to give you a friendly reminder that your inspection period deadline expires in 2 days. And hey, if, you know, you want to have an update for me? Do you have an amendment? It's just going to remind her that, you know, she's probably going to be like, Tammy, I'm on top of this. But it's just kind of like a check that I do with my agents as a TC to say, I know that this deadline's coming up, and I'm kind of waiting for, is there going to be an amendment? The amendments I have agents do, and your agents should only do your amendments because if you tell me, Tammy, I need the GCFI outlets in the kitchen updated, what does that mean? Do you want a licensed contractor to do it? Do you need receipts provided? You know, that's where it's kind of like the PA, you know, this is where you need to write all these things in there to make sure that you have them exactly how you want them. Once the inspection period's over, the other thing that a TC does, and I don't know if other TCs do you have admin ability to change your statuses and stuff, or do you send those to front desk?
Send it to the front desk.
You do, okay, so I think some may, some don't, I
Some
don't
might,
know.
yeah.
So as the in-house TC, that's where you wouldn't have to do that. I'm following your timeline. So I'm gonna reach out to you if I haven't heard, and I'm gonna say, hey, we should be past the right of rescission. I haven't heard from you. Are we now pending, or, you know, what's going on? So I'm gonna, after the inspection period, if you're representing a buyer, I'm gonna reach out to your lender. And I'm gonna say, hey, we're through with the inspection period, everything's going forward. You know, when you order that appraisal, if you could just let me know when that's done or whatever. So I'm gonna also follow up, and I'm gonna really make sure that that appraisal's been ordered. If it's your listing, I'll go into showing time. I'm gonna check to see if when that appraisal's scheduled. And then from there, I'm gonna put it on my calendar to remind me about appraisers usually have about a 5 business day grace period. So I'm gonna reach out to the lender again after 7 days, or the co-op agent, depending on what it is, and say, hey, how's appraisal, are we good? These are things that the agent then really doesn't have to be so focused on. You think, I don't know if any of you saw it, and I didn't pay her to do this, but Tony wrote a thing on Facebook on Friday that said it really decreased her stress. Because for solo agent, it's like, we're a team now. I'm supporting you, and I'm gonna make sure that all your timelines are met. So if you aren't good at keeping timelines or whatever, even if you are, I'm that second set of eyes to make sure that everything's, there. Big three. I like to say that's title, lender, and agent, but there really is big four because there's that co-op agent too. So that's where your TC focuses on is, hey, has that reaching out to title, has that pre-signing been scheduled yet? Hey, title, we're closing in a couple of days. Do you happen to have that Alta that I can look through? Because I want Megan to look through her Alta to make sure that it's correct, but I'm also gonna look through the Alta. And I'm gonna make sure the purchase price is right, that her broker admin fee is right, and that the commission is right. Because you don't wanna close and find out you got paid out 2.5% when it should have been 2.7%. Now it's harder to go back. And with the title companies.
Speaking of numbers, do you do the net sheets for listings?
Good question. So when you have a listing coming up and you need listing docs done, I don't do the net sheets because I think every agent does them a little different. The net sheet is when you're listing an appointment or listing, it's due, you need 3 prices at the time of listing, and then you need to do it again once it's under contract with the actual purchase price. Those are documents that I have special placeholders for in my software that once we go under contract, I'm looking to see, hey, have I received that yet? And if I haven't, I'll reach out to you. Agents will go in and write out, do that, and sometimes they say, hey, Tammy, it's done, can you send it out? Sure, no problem. I have no problem with that. Some agents, there's really, Megan's in there, she's like, I'm in here, I'm gonna send it out, and I'm just gonna copy my TC on it so that when it comes back fine, I'm okay with either way, it doesn't matter.
I like that approach because it's efficient. It's a huge time saver. Like, why would we send it to you and wait 3 hours for it to get signed?
Yeah, but there are agents that they don't. They'll say, hey, Tammy, I filled it out. It's filled out in my Instanet. Can you send it out? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I have no problem with that. Yeah.
Can you repeat again then, what documents are you willing to fill out and sign? So I
Yeah.
heard no PA, no net proceeds, but I'm not remembering what you can.
Yeah.
No amendments.
And no.
I will do amendments. It's just not the inspection amendment.
Yes, got it.
So you tell
Sure.
me,
Yeah.
you're on the phone and you just got off the phone with co-op agent and you need to change that listing date. Then you can say, hey, Tammy, can you write an amendment and get that started? Listing date, closing date shall be, December 24th or whatever. Yeah, I can do anything simple like that. I am licensed, so technically I can do it all, but again, it's what we go in back to, the difference between 3,000 and 300. I don't want to have to explain to you why I made, So so here's what I do. So when you say, Tammy, can you put together listing docs for me? I will put together and pull all of which for some agents, they're like, simple, I can do this. For other agents, it's very difficult. The agency affiliated business, the KW general disclosures and the listing contract. So I have special little links that when you need a listing, it's gonna ask you a lot of the questions that some agents are gonna say, well, it took me just the same amount of time to go in and do it. But what I've heard from other agents too is, hey, I'm away on the weekend and I don't want to sit down and open my computer and go to the forums and do it. It's easier for me because I can go on my mobile phone and I can just type in. So I'm going to ask you, when does a listing contract start? When does it expire? Is this FERPTA? Is there a lease, current lease? Can it be leased? Because I don't know how to answer those questions on your listing docs, but I'll ask for information, so I'll put that together. I'll send out the single family input form, page 1, because we don't want them to get the rest, right? So page 1 is just so that they can list it on the MLS. So I send that out for a signature. If your seller estimates of proceeds are done, I'll send that out. I send out the withhold. I automatically send out withhold with everything because what if they sign it? We have 2 business days, but I always send out with a hold because we might not know what day it's gonna go live. Do you already know that, hey, you're gonna have this coming soon and then you're gonna have it? So I'll send out a withhold, then I'll send out a coming soon, get that all done at the same time. I ask all of that on my link. So it says, do you need this? Do you need that? I will create the opportunity in command. I'm sure there's other documents that I'm missing. So the docs that I don't do or can't do is the rest of the MLS input. I don't know what the measurements are of nor should I be writing that down because we all know we should be measuring and not going off of the previous. So that, your seller estimate of proceeds and your showing instructions. Now, I'm kind of wavering a little bit on the showing instructions because I'm smart. I can go into your command. I can find out who their emails, their phone numbers and stuff. But there's other things on the showing instructions that I don't necessarily know. Where's the lockbox? Where's the, that kind of thing. So it's just easier for you to go into, and that isn't needed right away. So all we need to get that listing secured for you is those main docs, signatures. I can go in, I enter it into the MLS, and then I wait on the rest of the information. I'm the liaison with the front desk. So when I get listing docs and it's not complete, I'm gonna already reach out to Angela and I'm gonna say, hey, we know that we don't have a purchase price in here because we're not gonna list this for 2 months and we really just don't know yet what we're gonna list it at, or we just haven't decided. So I'm gonna be proactive so that I know what we're all missing, and then that's where I communicate with you guys and, hey, I'm still waiting on this, what's your timeline? It kind of segues into a little bit of I do weekly wrap-ups. And again, as a TC, this is to the agent. Admin, as customer service, might, reach out to your buyer or seller and say, hey, this is what happened this week and this is what's going on for next week and that kind of thing. My goal is to service the agent here and make sure that they know, okay, this is what happened this last week, or this is what I have. And it's a checks and balances for both of us. So I might reach out and I say, 123 Main Street, I have, hey, this one just went under contract this week. I have closing for this day, inspection deadline or whatever. And I update that every week. Well, if you get my email and you're like, oh, we changed the closing date because it didn't work for my buyer and now we have to do it this date, and I totally forgot to send all this stuff to my TC. That's your way to look through and say, are we all on the same page? It's also the agent's way to make sure that I have, again, received all the information, or I just had a situation with another agent where I told her, I said, yeah, I'm still waiting on these listing docs. Nope, they came in, I just didn't mark it off my thing. So we keep each other in balance and check. Yeah. Other questions?
Going back to the list price, so when
Yeah.
I've had listings that I know won't go on for a while, I still usually put a price in there, but it has changed.
Yeah.
But it's okay to not have one initially?
I think you do have to have a price.
Do you?
Okay.
So I have done to be determined. Because if like, I take a listing and I take this now and I know that my buyers are gonna sell it in spring, I don't even know. I have a hard time getting sellers to
where-
put a list price in on a contract.
No, I totally understand where you're coming
Yeah.
from, but to advocate then for the client, what if they don't want to list with you if you can't come to an agreement on a price? I almost feel like you have to have some sort of benchmark.
But on the flip side, if you're not selling it, you have no idea what that market price is, as a client, I would look at it and like, well, the reason I'm not listing now is because I think my house will be more valuable in the spring, and if you're telling me I had to list it at this, what rate? I mean, it can go both ways.
I suppose you could do a separate amendment that says final listing price to be determined
Sure,
at time of listing.
sure.
The where I come from in having this opinion is recent, but I've had realtors here at this market center who've refused to cancel listings with clients. Yeah, and
It's good.
and everyone has a different reason for why, and so I
Yeah.
respect their reasons why.
Yeah.
But I mean, we have to be an advocate for the consumer.
Yeah,
Did they, I mean, so they can do that, refuse to
Yeah.
cancel because there was a date that said this runs for
Yep,
6 months or 8 months?
yep.
I don't think I'd want to continue to work with someone who wants to
Right.
cancel with me.
that's
Oh,
my
yeah,
thought
me too,
too.
of that same.
That's my exact thought too, like, if you don't wanna work with, I'm
I'll tell
okay,
you, I've seen some real strange things.
I'm sure,
Eh?
yeah.
Realtors who've done open houses every weekend and it was overpriced to begin with, and now they're threatening to list with someone else at a lower price, and they're not giving that listing up.
I could see that too.
Yeah.
To answer really, it gets kicked back by front desk because it's not compliant, right? If you put to be determined. Yeah, I mean, I guess if.
There
I
is,
always tell
there is an other section on that listing agreement, at the very bottom, so you could say, at the end of this withhold period, as listing goes active, to be no later than, pick a date a long ways out.
Yeah,
Brokerage and seller will mutually agree to revisit price, or will mutually agree to amend the price or something.
that's probably the best way to do it.
I think so.
Really, it is.
Yeah, so don't leave it blank, and please don't.
Okay, so listen to the TC.
But I don't know that I would have that opinion unless we talked through it the way that we did.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's good to talk through it.
yeah.
I do always say like, hey, this is the price as of now, we know that it could change, but that's like a side conversation, that's not something that we put in writing, so I think that's good to put it in that
Yeah.
section.
Right.
I think it could also be contested, if you're ever to go to real estate, court or whatever. I think it could be contested that you don't have a binding contract if you're not talking about a dollar value.
Okay.
So I'd hate to have you get caught in a situation where someone says, well, I'm just deeming this contract invalid in the first place.
But, so here I'm gonna just play the side of the, like, I'm selling my house. And I'm saying, Lisa's my gal, she's gonna be my realtor, but I'm not selling it until spring. And you tell me my house is only worth this now, I want it to, I think leaving it blank is different than writing in to be determined. And
I
maybe,
say maybe list it
Because
high
you're
and then
still-
lower it.
it's, the contract's still saying, I'm listing with Lisa from this period to this period. she's my go-to. I've already, I'm not gonna use another agent.
I don't know, I mean, it's theoretical and it'll probably
Yeah.
never come up,
Yeah,
but I think to cover your bases, it's
that's a
probably
good point.
best not to leave it blank.
Yeah.
Second
No.
best TBD.
Second best, right?
And
Best ultimately, absolutely.
And it's
Yeah, don't
Murphy's
leave it
law
Right.
that anything you say will probably never come up, will definitely come up in my world.
This week on a transaction.
Oh,
People always go to me, I don't know why you have such difficult clients, like, why does it happen to you?
We didn't really talk much about timeline and timing and stuff like that, but if you want to pick my brain ever, I'm right here. You all know where I'm at. You can email me or, I'm here every Thursday from 1 to 2 and be happy to. I think it's hard as an agent to really if you're doing it all for yourself, I don't even have the answer to that, how I was pretty good at time blocking. My morning, I was supposed to just focus on my lead gen for 2 hours. I don't answer the emails, and I think it's hard at first, but when you start setting that precedence with your clients, which Chad was just a fabulous coach that I, said to, hey, if you're gonna email me at 9, that's great and everything. It's not meaning I'm sleeping in, but I'm working on growing my business during that time, and then I'm available this time to this time, and then so the hardest part is just then keeping the email off and not wanting to go in and address everything. Otherwise, you're chasing your tail,
all day.
right? So, I guess that's really the only thing that I can say is if you are time blocking, have you heard the term eat the frog? The things that you hate to do, or the things that are, get those done in the morning. Time block that you do your lead gen in the morning, that you work on, hey, if you're gonna work on your 36 touch, because what's gonna happen is if you start in with your emails and you're, answering all the questions for all your clients and, making sure that this gets to that lender and that sort of thing, by the end of the day, you're not gonna have the energy to, I'll just do my 36 touch again tomorrow, or I'll go in and update my database and stuff. I guess that's the only. Thanks, Tammy.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have
Thanks for joining us online, Abby.
I have a twist on Eat the Frog for you to make you laugh.
Yeah.
I had a can of soup sitting on my desk yesterday, and Olivia is a very healthy eater, and, eating something
Olivia
high
Manson?
sodium out of a can is probably not the healthiest thing. And she's on top of me for this. And she goes, "What's that can doing on your desk?" And I was like, "It's lunch, I think it's pretty healthy." And she said, "Oh, I thought it was a can of dog food." And I was like, "What?" I said, "Well, there's something that some realtors around here have been doing for a few years, and that if you don't get to the end of your lead generation, you need to eat the can of dog food that's sitting at
I
your
heard
desk."
that. Somebody actually ate it. I don't know what office or where it happened, but I was like, okay, that makes me want to throw up.
You can eat the frog, or you can eat the dog food, but you might as well just time block into your lead gen.
That's funny.
Isn't that funny?
It's
Yeah, and I think part of it too is just really your clients will come to know. And they're gonna, just like I have to a TC say, my hours are 8:30 to 4:30, and when I'm sitting at home at 7 o'clock and a text comes in and I wanna answer it and I wanna, start working ahead on things, it's just like the parent. You're gonna give in that one time, and then and then the expectation is there, and then your business is ruling you, and you're not taking control of your business. So I'm
Don't let
guilty
it
and
run
it's
us, Lisa.
Guilty and,
Yeah,
I've been
it
doing it
says
for
the-
20 years.
Says the person who is exchanging emails with me at 11 at night.
All the
And it's,
time.
well, it's funny, funny is I do the same thing, right? I will, before I go to bed, look and work on stuff. And then it's funny because that's the one time, that's one of the times that she has a moment to deal with some emails. I'm like, I sent my email to you. I didn't expect you to respond, at this time, but she does.
Not every day, some days.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get better.
And by the way, too, so my special is so I charge per transaction. It's $2.99. The second transaction is free. That's not per team, that's per agent. So just so you're aware of that too, or, whatever. But, yeah, just to kind of get people to try it, because I don't think it's just the first transaction. I mean, you really have to work with your TC to develop a group. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And I know my biggest thing as a TC is I don't like the term, I don't do that, that's not my job. I've never been that kind of person, so it's really hard for me to say to somebody because I internalize it and I'm like, I'm just gonna do it because it's easier than addressing it. But it's real important to when you have an admin and a TC to just really know where everyone is.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.
I don't think I told you, Winona was yeah, it actually came in $1,000 higher. I was like, oh.
Awesome. I will mark that down.
Do you want me to text you as a reminder?
No, okay. I'll go back to my desk right now and.
Oh, Lafayette's good too.
Yeah,
Yes,
no,
that one just as much, they're both good.
Awesome. Did you get anything out of this?
Yeah. No, and I wanted to know more about editing. But I still.
Yeah.
I'm still sad about food from last week.
Oh, that's hard.
I mean, not the first one, won't be the last, but still, I'm like, what the heck? Like, we talked about everything, you were totally pre-approved, like, your lender gave you all the estimates. If your parents had that much to say, why are you talking about good offering? Why are you talking about the
One thing Chad taught me to do is, in the buyer consult, is to always ask if anyone else would help me make these decisions.
Yeah.
And
He
then,
came, I met open house, he came with his parents, so I knew they were like, involved, but. Yeah, I mean,
then
I guess I should have been like, hey, did you run this by your parents?
it's so hard, but then, if they say, yeah, I'm relying on my parents for really good helping and stuff, it's to say, then your parents need to get it. I had a parent that almost blew up an inspection once, and I thought after that, I was like, this parent, from now on, if a parent's gonna say they're gonna be at the inspection, they're gonna be at every showing.
Yeah, for losing a commission, he said he wants to revisit like next year. Well, because he's kind of seeing, it says I mentioned that right now, well, what's gonna change next year? You know what I mean?
Yeah. What
It
is
was
he,
weird.
what is he living in now? Is he renting?
He's living with his parents.
Enablers,
I know.
enablers, that's the problem.
It just sucks because I met him a long time ago with Open House, so we've been like in touch forever, and now he really wanted to send us back home. In that area, but he was open to townhomes now. I'm like, great, that's really gonna give you more options, and he was so excited, and I did not push him to offer, there were no other offers that they looked at. And I'm like, okay, just sleep on it, so you know for sure if you want to offer. He texted me and says, like, yep, I thought about it, I wanna offer.
Probably good.
Yeah, that might
Not another one, because then I always worry, I'm like, okay, is that gonna scar my name?
I know, and even looks at it.
I know,
Yeah. Everybody's already started working on everything for you.
yeah, that's a whole nother.
I know.
Shoot, and, as far as townhome, I tell my buyers too, it doesn't, it may not be the house that you want, but it's gonna be be one step closer to getting you there because you're going quickly and you're
It was
like.
like 5 minutes from his work, the location was great for him. It was like, oh well, can't dwell on it for
That's a bummer.
So yeah, anyway, both the interviews are good. Tonight, we're still going strong. Even though I'm worried about him, like he's needs to provide a little bit of things. Yeah, and I've been talking about this on for a lot, she's really cool, but like we need that soon because that closing is November 10th. I leave for Mexico on the 11th. Like, you can't.
Give me a chance, that is. I mean, just keep me posted. And then, there's things that I can do. Just, work with.
I just like, I really want to be at those closing meetings because his English is pretty good, but it's like, I think he doesn't always understand everything. So. Thanks for everything, Tammy. Is that